Tearing down the superheated barrel of life, unleashed at the speed of unrelenting full auto. We are the scourge of the Vox Wave, 665.66 UHMR Chemrat Radio. Coming to you live tonight from Joe's Sump Shack.
Speaking of oversized sump crustaceans, the last few months of silence from the Glass Eaters was too good to be true. Once again, those glass holes are on the warpath trying to claim territory in the Underhive. Sure would be nice to see some of the Arbites officers when they are actually needed.
Doing our best to shred what's left of the Administratum's propaganda machine, I am your plasma freak host with the most, Goblin King, joined by our stargazing navigator supreme. Who are we kidding? You couldn't find Arconia's moon on a clear night. Marky.
Who's Arconia? Why did he moon me?
And just fanatical enough to probably tell us which star in that sky is actually Terra, it's Kev.
Terra's a planet, not a star.
Terra's a myth.
Right, but when you look up into the night sky, other planets appear like stars.
Do they?
Yes.
I don't know. I live in the Underhive. What the fuck, man?
Have you ever seen a star?
Terra's a myth.
Careful, though. That kind of thing can get you shot.
And no one listens to us down here anyway.
That's true.
So welcome to episode 70 of Under the Hive of Madness, Planet Spotlight Holy Terra. As we record our last episode of our second year of podcasting and bring a close to season 2 of UHM, we are taking a deeper dive into the home of humanity and the Imperium. End of season 2, guys. This is our last episode. This is our last recorded episode of season 2. And just a week away from us recording the first episode of season 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Survivor.
We're all still here.
You know, I thought Survivor had been going on for a long time. Then I found out that there's been like 20-something seasons of the challenge.
Holy
What's the
shit.
challenge?
Right? Like, it blew my mind.
There was
Summers are watching a bunch of it. You've never heard of it?
I've never heard of the challenge.
Sorry, I know it's completely off topic, but the Survivor thing got me going, and Summer's been watching a bunch of it lately. So imagine if... So you know what Real World is, right?
No.
You don't remember MTV Real World?
I didn't have
So
I never watched it, but I knew of it.
So Real World was they took like... It was a 90s show where they took like a bunch of...
Late 90s, early 2000s.
Kids who watched MTV, essentially, and put them into a Winnebago. Oh, well, okay. There's original,
a bunch of versions.
The original Real World from the early 90s. They put a bunch of kids in a Winnebago, and then they made them like live together.
Real World?
Maybe.
He might have been on it at some point.
I stopped watching Real World in like season 3. But it was like Big Brother.
Like Big Brother or any of those where there's like a bunch of people all living together.
Like having to live in one house together.
Never seen Big Brother.
I can't believe that challenge has been around for 20 fucking years.
It's not necessarily that it's been around 20 years, but there's like 20-something seasons because they were double running them for a while.
Well, and the thing that blows my mind is that South Park is in like season 19 or 20.
South Park's been going since I was like 12.
The Simpsons has been going for like 34, 35 years.
Yeah, that blows my mind too. But so essentially it's like Survivor and Big Brother put together. So a bunch of MTV punk ass fuckboys.
I know what Survivor is. I don't know what that other thing. What's the other thing?
You know what fuckboys are, right?
So Big Brother
imagine
was
fuckboy Survivor.
Okay.
yeah.
And instead of trying to survive in the jungle, it's a ballin' ass mansion.
Yeah.
What?
And between days of living at this mansion, they go out and do Survivor type bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
or they
have to climb this cargo net, and the first one to the top wins. Except that they're allowed to straight like punch each other off.
Did they do that in Big Brother? Like challenges?
No, but
Big
there was
Brother
like voting people
Yeah.
out of the house and stuff like that going on.
The other thing that I don't know if they do it anymore in the challenge, but there used to be a thing that they would do in the challenge where they would take away something that you would think was like you hand wave is trivial, and they have to like survive without it for a week. And it'd be something like you can't use any knives, like any knives at all.
And that's not really the challenge. Now they just made the challenges like ridiculously hard. Not
they,
even
like,
weird.
They mixed it
now
with X Factor is what they did, or Fear Factor. Joe
they
Rogan's
did a little
old
bit,
show.
Yeah, so they did a little bit of the Fear Factor stuff, but now it's like the finale is
you can't use toilet paper.
No. It's like kayak
for a month.
Kayak up a river in a snowstorm for 3 miles upriver.
Yeah.
Then get out of said kayak, climb a mountain.
Pee on a raccoon.
In the snow. This is like in the middle of fucking Norway.
What the fuck?
Climb a mountain. You got
Pee
to the
on
top.
A raccoon.
Eat a pound of fermented shark.
Oh, God.
Get on a bike. Pedal down the mountain to another fucking like 10 miles in the snow to another place. And the first person there wins. After doing all that other shit. And that's like one thing to...
That's one challenge?
That's the finale. Like, that's how it ends.
All right,
it's like...
So this is after they've already eliminated like a bunch of teams.
Ninja Warrior / Fear Factor.
It's like Ninja Warrior challenges on a Survivor, except you're living in a fancy house.
Yeah.
I hate reality TV.
No, it's absolutely ridiculous, but it has led to some really crazy reality TV show moments. So you're aware of some of these people, right, Ryan? Like, do you know any of the names of the people that were on it? Because you were familiar with the show. Oh, okay.
Snooki.
So,
no, is that one?
Snooki type people though.
Yeah,
were on it.
Yeah.
So there's this one dude, and his name was...
That sounds so racist the way you say that, Kevin.
No, it's a personality thing, not a race thing.
There was a dude with ridiculous frosted tips that became really, really popular. I remember him.
Was that Bananas?
No, it wasn't Johnny Bananas. But
so you know who Johnny Bananas is. Johnny Bananas.
There's a Wasteland Weekend video with me and Johnny Bananas in it.
What?
Yeah,
Johnny went to Wasteland?
Yes, and I'm in the video. Okay. You keep talking.
That's funny, but there's an episode where Johnny is going against this other dude, and it would so the other dude's name's CT, and to give you an idea.
Hold on, I need some context first. Who is Johnny Bananas?
That's literally his name on the show.
He's just like a crazy dude.
He's just a dude. He's just a normal guy, pretty much. But he's pretty good at the game, and he's won it quite a few times. But he's my size, right?
Okay,
you're gonna show it, and
I'm gonna show who
the Wasteland one.
Yeah, this is Johnny Bananas. Oh, I can't. You guys can't hear
hear it. That's so crazy.
So he went, but wait, it gets
and
better.
That isn't that long ago because.
You're going to see somebody real soon. Tom might actually be, Beast might actually be in this too. That's not for very long because he was not fucking amused, but.
Oh, I'm sure. What? Just the fact that Johnny Bananas went to Wasteland.
I can't believe, fuck, man, this is a weird tangent, Kevin.
Right? So what a rant, and all because he said Survivor.
Yeah. For those of you listening, we watch a video at one point of this dude named Johnny Bananas.
Oh, hey, I'm in that shot with all the bikes going by.
Would not be surprised if you're in multiple of these, dude.
Because that was the year that we had the big rev off at the front gate.
Yeah, there I am, right there.
Ah!
And now I walk around with him for like 3 or 4 hours of footage. But yeah, I wasn't supposed to be in it. I was only supposed to introduce something and then immediately move on.
Gone.
But he ended up having me in a bunch of it.
That's crazy.
Oh my God, I'm walking around with so much shit. Do you know how heavy all that crap was?
I know, right?
Okay. So that's Johnny Bananas.
So there's Johnny Bananas, roughly, me, Ryan size.
Okay.
There's another dude named CT, and in this challenge that they get put up against each other 1v1, they're strapped back to back, right?
Okay.
And they have to try to get tug of war, but you're back to back, and no rope.
And butt naked.
No, they're wearing normal clothes. And you gotta
just the double-sided dildo holding you together.
I was just trying to make it more interesting.
Just ass to ass. Whoever rips it out first wins.
And you get to the opposite side of like a tennis court size.
Or not equilibrium. It's
beach volleyball,
Rec Room for a Dream all over again.
Rectal librium.
Rectal
You had to basically drag the dude that you're strapped to the other side and knock over a 55-gallon drum.
All right.
CT just leans forward.
Yeah.
And just picks Johnny up.
Yeah.
And Johnny looks like a fucking baby in a little baby carrier. And CT just Hulk mode. Like, veins on the forehead. You could see the veins on his thighs, like, ripping his pants open. And just carries fucking CT. It's pretty brutal.
Yeah, it's a crazy ass show. All right.
It leads to some ridiculous reality TV moments.
How did we get to reality TV from the Imperium of Man?
Because he said Survivor, and then that reminds
me.
Because it was Survivor's been going forever, and I was like,
because we're moving into season 3.
Yeah, because we are
it.
Also moving into the show that's been running forever.
We have recorded 105 episodes for you guys to date. So if this is the first episode of our show that you have ever listened to, and the number I dropped, 105, doesn't make sense because this is episode 70. We do a couple of side segments. We do one called Loris Obscurus, which is all about folklore and crazy shit in the American wilderness, actually in the world wilderness at this point. We are deep into checking out hauntings and cryptid sightings all over the world at this point. So that's kind of our I don't even know. It's supernatural show that we link back to Warhammer 40K. We also do a segment that we call Tales from the Hive, where we either introduce our own lore, or we talk about some of our listener lore, or we go over some creative writing tips and tricks. And so there's a lot of content out there. And if this is your first episode, fucking welcome, strap in, because this is going to be a weird ass ride. As we just diverged for like 6 minutes into the challenge. What do you mean, what the fuck?
Yeah, go back. Listen to some of the other shit.
Yeah. We'll pause. We'll pause. All right, that's enough time for him to listen to everything.
Yep. Now that you're caught up.
Beautiful on the surface, but rotten underneath. Don't ever, even for a second, doubt that it is the most dangerous world in the galaxy. Danger does not always come in the shape of orcs with bolters, Ragnar. This world is where the elite of the Imperium have gathered. We're talking now of the most ruthless, ambitious, unscrupulous collection of rogues ever culled from 1,000,000 planets. This is the place they have come to realize their ambitions. And on Terra, they can and will not let anything stand in their way. Not me, not you, not their own kin, if need be. That's Torin the Wayfarer, Wolfblade to House Belisarius of Novinus Nobilite, speaking to Ragnar Blackmane.
Was he referring to demonettes?
No, he was talking about people who live on Terra.
Oh.
Yeah.
He's talking about diggers.
Terra, known as Earth in the most ancient of records, is the throne world of the Imperium of Man, both the birthplace of humanity itself as well as the God Emperor. Terra is a hive world located in the sector solar of Segmentum Solar, whose population is counted in the hundreds of billions, if not more. It is also the most sacred of places to those devoted followers of the Imperial Creed, and billions of pilgrims trek to the homeworld from across the galaxy every year, just to walk across its sacred but long contaminated and barren soil. Even as the planet is mostly covered in massive hives, much of it is effectively a globe-straddling temple built to the worship of the Emperor of Mankind. As the throne world, the planet supports the primary headquarters of many of the adapta that ensure the Imperium's continued function. The Imperial Palace, the Scholastica Psychanica, the halls of the Astronomicon, the Ecclesiarchal Palace, and the Cathedral of the Emperor defined, to the halls of justice, and that's just to name a few.
The Scholastica Psychana, just that, I don't know.
That's like the primary psycher school.
Okay.
So there's a lot of Scholastias.
It's like Hogwarts.
Yeah.
It's like Hogwarts.
Oh, wow.
You're a wizard.
You're a
Billy.
wizard, Marky.
You're a wizard, Billy.
You're a psycho, Marky.
Oh, God. It's not what you want to...
ships is coming.
It's not what you ever want to fucking hear.
Right?
It's not a nice little letter coming through your fucking...
Yeah. Instead of an owl and a letter, it's a black ship and a fucking Arbites.
It's literally a civilization. It's literally a world that's built around the idea that any fucking fireplace can be turned into an instant teleporter. And they rely on the slowest goddamn animal on the planet to deliver mail.
Dude, that would be the most fucking hilarious, like, crossover skit that we could... If we had, like, an animator that could, like, do...
If we
it would be fucking...
We need to hire... We need to just find an animator. We'll write it, and they just do the animation.
Go on Fiverr.
Marky's weekly podcast plug to find an animator to animate our random bullshit.
Let's see. What would it be called? It would be...
Harry's Black Ship Journey.
Well, no, you gotta like parody it off one of the names of like one of the books.
Harry Potter
and the Black Ship of Secrets.
And
oh yeah, there's a secret, all right.
Harry Potter and the 999,000 other psychers.
I was going to say, and the Astronomican's flame.
The Astronomican's
instead of the Goblet of Fire, it's the Astronomican's flame.
This is a real short book. It starts with Harry finding out he's a wizard, and on page 2, he dies to power the Astronomicon.
Oh no, there's got to be at least like one ship of silent torture as the black ships drive him insane, as he's cut off from the warp for the entirety of his journey back to Terra.
His journey to fucking sub-level 9 3/4.
Oh, yeah.
9 3/4. Wow.
Yep.
Whatever the hell
Processing it is. Facility 9 3/4.
Like, that doesn't exist. It does exist. They do exist.
It's been struck specifically from the Imperial record. It doesn't exist.
Redacted.
Speaking of redacted, only
sister, that's a meat grinder, not a doorway.
I found the source of the mysterious ticking sound. It's this pipe bomb. You seen the Harry Potter puppet pals? Voldemort blows them all up with pipe bombs.
Sounds like my kind of.
Oh my god, it's pretty funny. So speaking of redacted information, only scant records remain to speak of the Earth that was, and none now remember what it was like in those ancient days. Those last remaining hints, though, speak of a naturally beautiful world whose resources and environments were sacrificed on the altar of progress. It seems likely that in the last decades before the Age of Strife, old Earth was covered in cities that stretched from pole to pole, polluted monuments to the power and industry of humanity's hubris. Then came a great war that was unlike anything that had come before it. What little the 41st millennium savants and historians have been able to gather of this time comes mostly from the nightmarish myths and legends of the Age of Strife. But it seems likely that the weapons and armies unleashed by the warring factions of Old Earth were of such horrific power, they tore down and ground to dust the great old cities of mankind. When the Emperor revealed himself and began his path to become humanity's leader, renaming the planet Terra in this process, Earth was a wasteland left in the warring clutches of the techno-barbarians. These savages endlessly fighting for survival over the husked corpse of their former glory.
Basically talking about how they exited the golden age of technology.
Yes, left the golden age violently.
Extremely.
Was it leaving, or was it more like forcibly ejected from the golden age?
It was almost like
the golden age had
projectile diarrhea.
Right
into the Age of Strife.
The golden age had a couple of there's definitely a couple of steps as the golden age kind of crashes down upon itself.
Yeah.
And as a bit of a teaser for you guys, as we steam right into season 3 here, the Unification Wars in the early period of the Imperium will be our next mini-series, which will launch probably in 2 or 3 weeks. We have an episode in between that is covering some old world, Warhammer Old World content, if you're into Fantasy Battle, and then we are jumping into our mini-series on the Unification Wars. So a lot of this stuff that we'll breeze past as sort of a history and overview of Terra, we will come back to in detail soon.
Continue on.
Enhance.
Enhance.
The end of the Unification Wars changed everything. The Emperor turned his will towards bringing back some of the planet's lost natural beauty, while also defining the magnificence of the Imperium of Man. The Himalayan mountains, now a region called the Himalasia. How the fuck are you supposed to pronounce that, Kev?
Himalasias?
Himalasias?
Let me check them.
How does the Imperium pronounce the Himalayans? Because it's not the Himalayans, it's like the Himalasias.
I'd say how you just said it was probably correct.
The Himalasias. Himalasias.
Yeah, unless it's supposed to be Himalasia.
Oh, maybe it is Himalasia. Himalasia.
Like combining
Himalayans and Asia. Himalasia.
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna go
because it kind of took the place of that whole southeast corner of the continent. Yeah. So it really just depends on if you think they're referring to it as more geographical or if they're trying to give it a fancy, Latinier sounding name, whichever one you.
No idea. So the Himalayan mountains, now a region called the Himalasia, were leveled to serve as the foundation for the imperial palace, while new vast cityscapes and glittering hive cities were built, rich in sprawling parklands, statuary, and breathtaking architecture. Even the spaceports of Terra, which scraped the very edge of space, were magnificent in design, nurturing natural beauty within their functional design. With a mix of planning and mastery of psychic powers, genetic engineering, and other sciences, the Emperor had begun a generational-long process to heal the world. Then came the heresy. With it, brutish fortifications replaced or hid the stunning architecture, and while the forces of War Master Horus were eventually driven from the planet during the siege of Terra, orbital bombardment, then invasion, and finally open siege and warfare had once again destroyed much of the world's returning beauty, this time to be lost forever.
So Horus is the bad guy, right?
Yes. As much as anybody can be the singular bad guy, yes. This era of Imperial history, of the Imperium's history, is very much kind of recorded.
They're still the good guys, and everybody else the bad guys.
Yeah. Essentially.
At this point, they're not even like, are we not the good guys anymore yet? Like, they're still pretty unquestionably still the good guys.
Oh, are we the baddies?
That comes later.
Is Sanguinius like Jesus? Except he didn't come back?
So,
yes.
And we've alluded to this in the past.
Short answer, yes.
Yeah, we've alluded to this in the past. A lot of the story of the Horus Heresy is actually very close to John Milton's Paradise Lost, which is an epic poem about the fall of Lucifer from heaven, with Horus replacing Lucifer and the Emperor, the God Emperor, replacing God. A lot of it kind of falls down to that like battle between angels and fallen angels, which would become demons. That's very much how the Horus Heresy is sort of painted in broad strokes.
Interesting. So who would be Moses, and what sea did he part?
Magnus, and that was when he was trying to get the warning to the Emperor.
That could be it.
That was literally just me pulling something out of my ass, dude.
Oh, that was great.
I think Moses would probably be like a parable about the Eldari leading something Eldari-ish leading to something, or maybe the old ones. If you were to put it in that context. Because again, you have to, as much as the Imperium of mankind views the Emperor as a god, the rest of the galaxy doesn't view the Emperor as a god. The Emperor is literally just a really powerful dude who may or may not even be alive anymore.
Was.
Quotes. Lots of bunny ears in this episode. Since the end of the Horus Heresy, Terra has been rebuilt again over the course of 10,000 years. However, its magnificence has faded and become replaced with the macabre and gothic, almost as if the throne world itself is linked to the slowly decaying husk of the Emperor himself. Terra is the beating heart at the center of an imperial bureaucracy, Why do I sound drunk every time I try to say bureaucracy?
Because we can't see what's in your hands, so...
It's a beer.
My powers of deduction.
Terra is the beating heart at the center of an imperial bureaucracy, at once a sacred world and one of immense political power. Its power and majesty over the Imperium of Man have seen the planet become a legend to most people of the galaxy, those who will be born and die without ever seeing it. The Imperial Palace is the site of the Golden Throne, which acts as a life support to the mortally wounded Emperor, even as it amplifies his psychic powers in the warp. Both awe and terror-inspiring architecture dominate the world still. However, what was once beautiful and accented by celebration of nature is now a foreboding domain. Statues of angels, saints, and primarchs loom over those who toil below. Their sightless stares drive out any thought of heresy or rebellion, while inspiring the fanatical zealotry of the imperial creed. Even so, it is considered such a blessing for pilgrims to set their feet upon Holy Terra that most who manage to make the journey never leave its polluted surface again.
So it's like a wasteland, essentially.
Yeah.
The parts of the planet where you can see the surface are a barren wasteland. Most of it is a city.
Shameless plug, Patreon. If you like to join us for $6 or $9, you can see the beautiful art that Ryan pulls up. And you could see
Sometimes
Horus
I'm good at it.
standing over the Emperor. I thought the Emperor was taller than... Oh,
that's Sanguinius.
Well, no. I mean, the Emperor's on the right? Sanguinius is on the floor.
Yeah, oh yeah. Horus is standing over... Yes, that's the Emperor.
But
yeah.
If you pay attention, the Emperor's left foot is down low.
Yeah, he's like 3 steps below.
But he still seems like the same height as Horus. Shouldn't he be, like, much taller?
Horus is juiced.
Yeah, not only... Horus is chaos juiced in this, and he is also
Horus
in Terminator armor.
Prime.
Yeah, he's in Primarch Terminator armor. He's in the big ass Terminator armor.
And this is at literally his most powerful.
And that's why Sanguinius looks a little smaller, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
That's about typical
Sanguinius
size.
is also laying on the floor dead at this point. In this picture. Sanguinius is already dead.
Is dead, yeah.
Damn.
This is the moments between Sanguinius's death and Horus's death, which really probably is only a 10-minute span,
if
that.
So
I haven't finished reading the Siege of Terra novels, but I would imagine it's not. It can't be.
It's 10 minutes or less.
There's probably going to be some monologue. There's probably going to be some fill-in monologuing.
Is it published already, the fight between Horus and the Emperor?
Yeah, I think the final book's already out. I'm on book 3.
Because I know they keep adding books for the Horus heresy.
Let me find out, because I know what it's called.
You look that up.
The Emperor pretty much backhanded the shit out of Horus into non-existence, right?
So the Emperor and Horus actually have a fight in psychic space leading up to the Siege of Terra. And even during the Siege of Terra, they're continuously battling in psychic space. Depending on, and again, I haven't read the Siege of Terra books, which are explaining a lot more of it in detail, but the Emperor was losing the fight. And then somebody stepped in and essentially allowed Horus to be distracted enough in a split second that the Emperor was able to banish his soul from his body, essentially destroy his soul in the psychic realm, as he made a mortal killing blow to his body.
I thought it was also the sword that did that too.
Yeah, and there's also some other stuff going on. Like Horus is at the height of his power, but Horus isn't really Horus anymore at this point.
He's like a undivided possessed in a way.
Yes, he's kind of a possession of all of the chaos gods at this point. He's very sick. Like the soul that is actually Horus is very sick and dying. It's lot like how Fulgrim's
burning up his soul.
Yeah.
To make him that powerful. And the Chaos Gods are loving it.
Yeah, a lot like how Fulgrim's soul is essentially tortured and trapped. And the demon Primarch,
the greater lair demon thing. Yeah.
Actual Fulgrim is trapped inside of Fulgrim's body watching all of this in horror. Like the Chaos Gods do this kind of weird, wacky shit.
So it looks like it's out, the book.
Yeah, I want to say it just came out, or like maybe a month or two ago.
Yeah, it can't have been very long but it's called The End and the Death, Book 8, Volume 1.
Yeah, I'm on book 3. No, I'm on book 4 now.
Okay.
I've been reading them. I haven't been listening to them, which is why it's taking me a little bit longer.
The cover art is so dope.
But I also had to take a break and read the Felix and Gotrek books, because as much as I would like to read all of the Siege of Terra stuff, sometimes the amount of detail that goes into Space Marines fighting Space Marines is exceedingly boring.
Brother, you have betrayed me. You are no longer my brother. You were no brother of mine. You were a coward. No brother.
Yeah, it's just I get that there's important battles, and I get that there's important set pieces.
Did I nail it?
Yeah, and I get that there's important things to be done, but at a certain point, maybe and I realize a lot of it is we're selling books here, but maybe just tell the important parts rather
Cliff
than
Notes. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Did it need to be 8 books, or could we have done it in 4?
Or 1?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Considering all of this comes out of 6 pages in the Rogue Trader original book, yes, Marky.
Yeah.
Maybe there was a shrinkage or a growth point where you cut it off.
Please.
Obviously, I know a lot of people like reading that type of military science fiction, and there's an author named William Dietz that wrote a book series called Legion of the Damned, which is all about criminals who their brains are legitimately taken out of their bodies. They are put into black boxes, and then when they are needed for combat, they are put into exo battle suits. Think Tau Crisis battle suits. However, the entire time the Legion of the Damned is not on the battlefield, they are kept alive in total isolated blackness.
It's terrifying.
This series is 10 or 11 books long, and it deals with an alien invasion and this Legion fighting it off. And I've read all of them, and they're all great. And at a certain point, I've read 2 or 3 of these battles. 4, 5, and 6 are the same as 1, 2, and 3. They really are. So I get the appeal to some of it. There is a lot of interesting shit that happens in the Siege of Terra books. There's a lot of very interesting set pieces and stuff that doesn't deal with the war at all. There's a lot of cool stuff. There's
sounds like RoboCop.
Yes. Being turned off and not being able to do anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, they pulled that dude's brain out, stuck it in a robot, turned him on.
But they left him a hand so he could shake hands with people.
No, the bad guy.
Oh, yes. Okay, I thought you meant the good guy. Look, RoboCop's an awful story from either side.
Yes.
Honestly, it's fucked up. It's cyberpunk dystopia. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the newer one recently, but watching the old one and seeing Murphy just get blown up by 12 shotguns, you're like, God damn.
Yeah, right. Oh, dude.
What's this rated?
That might be one of the movies that predates different ratings. Anyway, back to Terra. Terra is possibly the most massive hive world within the Imperium. Its population is uncountable, but most likely it is in the high several hundreds of billions. Like most hive worlds, it is a study in extremes, with the population divided between a smaller upper class of imperial nobility and the adepts of the Adeptus Terra, and the teeming masses of the lower classes, which serve as basic laborers and indentured servants. The upper classes include the official servants of the Emperor, imperial officials such as the High Lords of Terra, the ecclesiarchy clergy, the aristocratic families of the Novinis Nobilitae, high-ranking military officers, high-ranking scribes, and other various high-level functionaries and bureaucrats. The lower classes are far less privileged, with most being little more than thralls or serfs, endlessly shackled to the manufactura and infrastructure mechanisms that keep the Imperium running. Terra also has a single moon, Luna, which is inhabited and a highly populated civilized world of the Imperium on its own. And that is the only time we will talk about Luna this episode, because Planet Spotlight Luna will come eventually.
Episode 169.
There you go.
Where we talk about ass.
Good. I got 100. I got 99 episodes, and Luna ain't one.
So before you move on, I got a sidetrack. Ryan's is like, goddamn, please let me finish.
I just want to know what the sidetrack is, because the last thing that was said was I got 99 problems and Luna ain't one.
So
like, where you going?
The wife and I just watched this anime. I think it's called Ragnarok. And who's the goddess of like beauty? Not Athena, right?
Aphrodite.
Aphrodite. They have this goddess Aphrodite, and she has I don't know if they're statues or if they're actual dudes, but she's got these statues of guys standing in front of her holding her boobs up. I'm wondering if the emperor has like dudes holding his nuts up. Like it's just
they're literally like sisters. Bound endlessly to life.
They're just...
No, they're not. They are not sisters of silence. They are dudes. I guarantee you, in the Imperium, it's two dudes that have to do it.
Dude, it's like the holiest of holy like things you could do. It's like raising the flag. What do they call that?
Color guard?
Not Is it like, it's not reveille? Is it color guard or? I can't remember what it's called.
Morning colors, yeah.
Yeah, it's like colors
God,
in the morning,
dude.
but like instead of raising the flag, you're raising the emperor's nuts up. Like
you just got to pick them up off the floor and wipe them down every once in a while. Make sure they don't fall off.
Some little fucking cherub baby servitor thing.
That's exactly
in with a little trumpet as you do it.
Yeah, and they're just raising his nuts up.
No. It's two cherubs. It's two cherubs that endlessly hover above the emperor, and they've got this big like cloth banner that goes down, and it's just wrapped around the
just
nuts,
cradling them,
cradles them
in a little a ball hammock.
What do you call it? Like
oh my god,
what's the movie with the dude, the Big Zambowski?
Big Lebowski?
The Big Lebowski, where he's like cleaning his bowling ball.
Jesus is cleaning his bowling ball.
Yeah, Jesus. But it's like
nobody touches the Jesus's ball.
That's how the cherubs clean the emperor's nuts.
Hey.
All right, sidetracked that.
So a little history of Holy Terra. The Age of Terra, or the Age of Progress, is the name given by imperial scholars to the time period between the 1st millennium and the 15th millennium. Basically, this is year 0 AD to year 15,000 AD. To give an idea, the imperial records cite Atlantis and Nova York as being legendary Earth cities from this time period. They also mention nations like Germania, Murica, Britannia, and Bania as being competing powers as mankind was making its first steps towards the stars. So obviously that's Germany, America, Britain, and I'm assuming Bania is some form of Eastern European bloc. Bania is not a techno-barbarian state, so not really much is known about it. It's literally written like twice in the books.
Yeah, they really called it Murica, huh?
Murica.
Is it Murica or is it Mercia?
It's Mercia. Let me say Murica.
Wow, way to fucking ruin that, Kevin.
Sorry, I've just been...
I was all on board.
I loved the concept that it was called Murica,
but it's Mercia.
I know that it would end up being called Mercia because
Mercia.
And the reason I know that is because fucking GW thinks Katachan is Catachan. So clearly they wouldn't let us have Murica. They're gonna fuck that up too.
God damn it, it's Murica. Yeah, it would be Mercia. But it's spelled Murica. It's Merica. It's Murica. The next 10,000 years was a golden age of scientific advancement and technological wonder, known to the Imperium as the Dark Age of Technology. It's this chunk of history where the warp drive, standard template constructs, and the artificially intelligent men of iron are developed, kicking off the spread of humanity outside the Sol system and into the galaxy at large, and establishing the first human galactic empire. For this, Terra serves as a capital as well, although it would be Earth at this point. Earth serves as the capital to this first galactic empire. However, this age of progress came to a stuttering halt. First, as humanity encountered Xenos threats during their expansion, including the Eldari and the Orcs. Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean that the first Xenos we came across were the Eldari and the Orcs. The first major Xenos threats we encountered were the Eldari and the Orcs. There may have been cases where humanity came across an alien species who had colonized the solar system or two. And in some cases, they were friendly and we traded with them and we lived with them in peace during the first galactic empire, not the galactic Imperium, to be clear, pre-Emperor days. However, this was the time where we started to run into Eldari like several hundred solar systems away from each other, or orcs in completely different portions of the galaxy.
You know, if those friendly aliens wanted to stay classified as friendly aliens, then they probably should have been more chill during the Age of Strife. Just saying.
It was during this time that the Men of Iron revolted. Next, human psychers began to appear in massive numbers for the first time, and these people, unable to control or contain their powers, unleashed the horrors of the warp upon their unsuspecting neighbors. The final nail in the coffin of this age of advancement was the slow growth of the new chaos god Slaanesh deep in the Imperium. This led to giant warp storms across the galaxy, cutting off interstellar trade and communications, isolating millions of human worlds. Many of them reverted to pre-industrial states as they maintained only small stockpiles of what would become archaeotech left over from the dark age of technology. So you would have a planet with the population of Earth in, say, the Middle Ages that had the technology, that technologically advanced equipment would only serve like 100 households. So you'd have a planet of, say, 180, well, no, let's say 900 million people, not quite a billion, but getting there. And there is enough technology for maybe 600 people. And that just led to, you know, when you have interstellar trade and you have interstellar communication, you can get new stuff, you can repair stuff, you can send resources out when you have them. When that goes away, they start hoarding this shit. And these noble houses, these knight households, essentially, rise as rich because they're controlling what little technology actually exists. And everybody else just goes back to, within a couple of generations, just goes back to like, well, I'm a farmer and I don't have running water or lights.
Damn.
Yep.
Yeah, humans are pretty adaptable.
And fucked up to one another.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
This isolation led to a terrible civil war that consumed Terra starting in the 27th millennia. This war saw the unrestricted use of thermonuclear, biological, and chemical weapons of mass destruction, a conflict that killed billions and saw Terra divided between nation-states of techno-barbarians. This age of strife ended in the 30th millennium, following the birth of Slaanesh and the fall of the Eldari. This is when the Emperor of Mankind first rose out of his deliberate obscurity to launch the Unification Wars. At the conclusion of this conflict, the various nations and warlords of Terra had been united under his rule, and the Emperor officially established the Imperium of Man. From here, the Emperor forged alliances with first the Cult Mechanicus of Mars, and later the Saturine Ordo, who became the core of the Solar Exilia, and then launched his Great Crusade. Imperial expeditionary fleets loaded down with Space Marines, Imperial Army troops, and the Mechanicus Knights and Titan Legios spread across the galaxy, once more uniting mankind under a single rule, defined by the secular imperial truth in the 31st millennium. This marks the birth of the Age of Imperium.
We colonized all the planets in our system?
Yeah, long before the Age of Strife. The entire Sol system had been completely colonized. So you had Earth and Mars, and then you had the Saturine Ordo, which is the term that's used essentially for everything from the Jupiter out. And that entire area had kind of become these like island nations, essentially, that internally warred with one another. But anytime a bigger threat came from outside, like orc raiders or something, they would band together and they would just destroy them. The Solar Exilia was the absolute pinnacle of humankind fighting forces. They were so good that even Space Marines were like, yeah, we don't want to really fuck with them en masse. They might win. Like they were the top, void suited and everything. And they don't really exist anymore because
sadly,
they were like the protectors of our solar system, essentially, right?
They made up the bulk of the original Imperial army. I mean, if you think about the statement I just made, one solar system, right? And then say the next step out in a cone, not a cone, in a bubble, in like a dome, you go from 1 solar system to 9 solar systems, right? So now you've got the Sola Exilia, and you have to spread those pinnacle of fighting forces and the Space Marines between 9 different solar systems. And then you step out again. Okay, now you've got to spread it between 18. Now 36. And it just keeps going like that.
Yeah.
It exponentially increases. So the further you get from the Sol system, probably still in the solar segmentum. You're not even in the segmentum pacificus yet, or the segmentum obscurus or anything. You're still just in the first segmentum, the core worlds. You're already spreading your elite fighting force threadbare. And what you're doing is you're bringing up these people who have largely either lived in their own technologically advanced society, which was kind of the rare exception, or more than likely pre-industrial age peasants and farmers. And those became your new troops. And you just mass produce las rifles and give them to them and point them at the enemy and hope. We have more of them than there are of you. Maybe we'll win. And then, as the Horus Heresy shows, in certain cases, we did come across these highly, highly, highly advanced Imperiums that were out there, places that knew enough of the history of what they had been involved with before the coming of the Age of Strife, that they had made their own imperial creeds and they had their own emperors of mankind. And the Great Crusade destroyed those groups of people because they weren't the true emperor, 1, and 2, because the emperor was trying to reunite everything. But in some cases, you come across this massively successful, 10, 12 system empire, and you have to destroy a certain amount of it in a civil war in order to bring it back into the fold. And through that, you kill off your best warriors and their best warriors.
When were the Thunder Warriors killed off? Was that, I'm assuming that was before the Great Crusade, right?
Very, very end of the Age of Strife. Very, very end of the Unification Wars, basically.
As he had finished uniting Terra.
Yeah.
Like in the culmination of that,
Order 66.
It almost lines up
much.
just like Order 66, where it's like, oh look, we won, right?
Yeah.
Right?
He's like, I don't want to play with you
the Genos,
anymore.
It was a little more tactical. There was a whole plan and everything where they got sent out, and then they basically got drop site massacred.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Genos regiments, which were like the Imperial Guard that had been fucked with and made better, the Geno Warriors and the Thunder Warriors were essentially the early forms of Space Marines. And what the Emperor found through the Unification Wars, and he kind of designed them on purpose this way. We'll get a lot more into this in the Unification War episode.
Purpose-built.
They had been purpose-built to be massively violent and aggressive. And what he realized was that in order to pursue the Great Crusade, that
was more like a side effect of how ridiculous they were.
And it was also it was also like an assumed thing. Like, they're going to be so violent and aggressive, they're going to die.
They'll end up dying in combat because they're too dumb to retreat and stuff like that.
There are rumors that there is a Thunder Warrior still alive in the 42nd millennium.
Yes.
So.
Basically, it's like a 99% chance that they're going to end up with full-blown cancer on the whole body.
Damn.
Full-blown, every part of their body will just start to fail. Kind of
because of the genetic mutation.
What is it? The Emperor's Children.
They're like juicers. If you're familiar with the Rifts universe, you can play a racial character class called Juicer, and a juicer basically wears a suit that constantly injects them with combat steroids. They're really, really good, really, really fucking fantastic techno barbarian warriors.
But literally, then you roll 3 ones in a row and you die.
No, but you have a 10-year lifespan. It's gonna burn your body out. Your metabolism's just gonna burn too hot and you're gonna die.
Your character will literally only last the one campaign, kind of thing.
Yeah, essentially. That's the way that they're kind of built. So what the Emperor realized towards the end of the Unification Wars was that Thunder Warriors were too aggressive and too brutal to be statesmen. He needed to create a force that could be warrior monks.
He needed Roman legionaries not berserkers.
Yeah, that he needed warriors that could act as statesmen rather than exactly what Kevin said, essentially.
He went from having an army of Leman Russ to getting more Lion and Gilliman.
There's a scene at the end of the Unification Wars where he essentially punches a bunch of them to death. He one-punch mans them to death.
The Emperor himself?
Yeah, the Emperor just like walks through a group of Thunder Warriors, backhanding them individually.
And they let him, or?
Oh no, they don't let him.
We'll get into it. Marky, you're asking questions about the first miniseries of season 3. And I'm knocking shit off my desk.
Marky,
I love Thunder Warriors,
Marky,
so I just...
You've seen Star Wars.
I have.
It's treason then. That's about how well that goes.
Fair enough. Yeah, I wanted to make a Custodes army that was essentially Thunder Warriors.
That would be dope.
Yeah,
I really like
we found
Thunder
the 3D
armor.
prints.
We did.
The Thunder armor is aesthetically one of my favorite designs.
Yeah, I love it. I wanted to just have them have Custodes rules because they're like juiced up like Custodes.
Because they are juiced up, yeah.
Yeah, and like the backstory. I think I've talked about it a couple times.
Yeah, you brought it up before. I like it.
Yeah, essentially a few of them that escaped and were lost in the warp.
And in the lore, part of it is knowing that, one, the technology wasn't really in place to mass manufacture complicated power armor. So he built the appropriate warrior for them.
Yeah, he knew
they weren't going to be battling in space. He knew they weren't going to be super tactful and that they were more like a blunt sledgehammer of a weapon. So he designed the Thunder armor, not void sealed, easier to put together and more just like blunt durable than like super finesse.
He needed something that could combat the techno-barbarians. So he basically took some of the best techno-barbarians that he won to his side early and used their like genetic pattern to make we're going to get into all of this in a lot more official detail.
Yeah.
2 episodes from now. The Emperor's dream of a new golden age of humanity unified under reason and progress collapsed in the wake of a galaxy-wide imperial civil war. War Master Horus, who had been left in charge of the Great Crusade by the Emperor himself, who had returned to Terra to undertake other projects, that's the Emperor, Horus fell to the ruinous powers of chaos. Half of the Space Marine legions, the Imperial Army, and the Mechanicum aligned themselves with Horus and his own Space Marine Legion, the Sons of Horus.
Spoiler alert, Ryan. God.
Over 9 standard years, the traitor forces burned a brutal path towards Terra, leaving countless worlds scourged with thermonuclear fire in their wake. Finally, Horus and his forces arrived and the siege of Terra began, with the traitor legions laying siege to the Imperial Palace itself. Billions of Terrans died in the defense of their emperor, and those hundreds of millions caught behind the siege lines of the traitors suffered horribly at the hands of the dark gods. So great was this suffering that a morbid fear of space marines has become a permanent fixture of Terran culture. People who live on Terra do not like space marines at all. They are fucking terrified of them and kind of hate them.
Yeah, because the only time space marines are ever on Terra is when shit is terrible.
Gets fucked up. The Emperor and his loyalist forces were ultimately victorious, and with the Emperor slaying Horus on the bridge of the traitor's flagship, the Vengeful Spirit. But the cost was terrible. The Emperor was mortally wounded, his ravaged body only preserved by internment into the cybernetic life support device known as the Golden Throne. His body was kept alive in the material world as his mind became anchored and empowered vastly in the Imperium of the warp.
Was it Horus just stabbed him and mortally wounded him? Is that how that happened? Or was it like a...
Essentially, Horus came in and cut him badly enough. I believe he and again, the Siege of Terra is going into greater detail, but I'm pretty sure he cleaved into the left side of his body and separated like the Emperor's left arm almost entirely. If you've seen the really famous piece of John Blanche art of the Emperor on the Golden Throne, there's one like
you can see that his arm is separated. Kind
of okay arm, and there's another arm that's like missing, essentially. So he severed one arm and clove pretty deeply into the Emperor's chest. And it was at that point that the Emperor basically, for
Obliterated
all
him.
intent and purposes, pressed the broadside of his sword into Horus and banished Horus's soul, like obliterated Horus's soul. Horus's body didn't really suffer that much damage, but his soul was tore from his body and destroyed utterly.
And that's because they were saying that Horus was completely, like, there's no trace of him. Did they mean...
There's no trace of his soul. There's no trace of his soul. So most anything, and there's an important reason for that distinction. Most anything that follows the ruinous powers that's reached the demonhood level of Horus can't actually be killed. Like Angron can't be killed. Angron can be banished, but he'll rebuild and come back eventually to the material plane. He can. Same with Fulgrim, same with Portorabo, same with Mortarion, and same with Magnus.
Yeah, they're just like demons, essentially, right?
Yeah, they're essentially demon Primarch. Yeah, all the demon Primarchs can come back. Horus, though, his entire echo, his entire soul, his entire manifestation in the Imperium, in the Immaterium, not the Imperium, in the Immaterium, in the warp, was destroyed. So Horus's body survived. He was dead because he had no soul. There was no life essence anymore. But that's why Bile was able to steal Horus's body from the Sons of Horus before the Sons of Horus repainted their armor and became the Black Legion, and make a bunch of clones of Horus and try to restart the heresy.
But they were all failures, right?
They all failed. Yeah, because there was no soul to attach to him anymore. One of the other theories is that Ezekiel Abaddon, is actually a clone of Horus. But in this case, it was the Emperor making a cloned copy of Horus before Horus was reunited with his legion. Yeah, something like that. And it's very hazy because Abaddon has memories of being raised on Cathonia, which doesn't really make any sense that the Emperor made a clone of him, blah, 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 blah. But there's also like little Horus is another... There's a lot of legionnaires in the Sons of Horus, in the Luna Wolves, that look a lot like Horus. Yeah.
It's one of those, there's a couple legions where they end up looking more like their Primarch.
Yeah,
like
the more they age.
Blood Angels end up looking kind of sanguineous-y.
Right.
And the Sons of Horus, Luna Wolves, are one of those.
Yeah. The theory that Ezekiel Abaddon is a clone of Horus basically comes from the idea that the Ezekiel who was, when he went through the process of becoming a Space Marine, the memories were transferred into a clone, essentially.
Oh, like they both started as the same memories, and then they made two Space Marines out of one person, essentially.
Yeah, essentially they took Ezekiel, the Chthonian Ezekiel's brain memory, and put it into a different body.
Okay.
And then yeah, they're theoretically one of the other nameless legionnaires may be Ezekiel's original body, but like he would never recognize it because of everything.
Because they all look like Horus.
But at the same time, it's so much I feel like that's one of those like little storylines that they introduced because they might fuck with it later, and then they were like, nah, we're never going to do anything with it. This is tinfoil hat territory. All the stuff we just talked about with Ezekiel being a clone of Horus is tinfoil hat territory. None of that is lore.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so for the last 10,000 years, the Imperium has stagnated, its technology, culture, and even morality slowly decaying. Even the imperial truth of secular reasoning has wilted away and been replaced with the imperial creed. Often this religious devotion to the god emperor seemingly being the only light that can hold the darkness of Xenos and warp threats at bay. Terra sits as the beating heart of an interstellar imperium which stretches across tens of thousands of light years, encompassing millions of worlds. Exerting its administrative control through at what best can be described as uncaring, faceless bureaucracy, and at worst, a brutal, xenophobic, mindless tyranny. Hundreds of billions of Terran citizens live in the Hive cities, which are like islands in a toxic urban hellscape that stretches across the entire planet. Those not born into the privilege of high status are lucky to find work as cogs in the endless bureaucratic maze of the administratum, as so many billions more are condemned to endless grueling poverty. However, all still call the wasted, toxic soil ground below their boots holy. Towards the end of the Imperium itself, Terra will become the scene of mankind's ultimate salvation at the hands of the Emperor's loyal servants, or the last outpost of humanity, which falls before a tide of heretical rebellion, Xenos genocide, and chaos damnation. So a couple of footnotes on history. Do you guys have any questions, actually, before we jump into the little bit of history that we didn't cover yet?
No, Terra sucks. Emperor's dead. Horus got his soul blasted out his booty hole.
Episode wrapped up pretty concisely.
Yeah. It all makes sense.
Go humans.
So a couple of footnotes we didn't cover when we talked about history just a second ago. With the Emperor incapacitated at the end of the Horus Heresy, the Imperium's leadership fell to the High Lords of Terra. This hasn't always been the smoothest or most stable concentration of leadership. As an example, in M32, during an event known as the Beheading, a grand massacre of assassins, Draken von Gorik killed all of the High Lords, taking over the rule of the Imperium himself, and this lasted for several solar decades. He was eventually disposed by a combined force of Space Marine chapters, however. Then, in M35 to M36, the Imperium was split in two by a political strife that was known as the Nova Terra Interregnum. This is when the Council of Nova Terra established itself as a second parallel capital of the Imperium. However, their efforts ultimately ended in holy civil war, where the Council was declared heretics against the will of the God Emperor. Right on the heels of this was the Age of the Apostasy in M36, where the Ecclesiarch Goj Vandire took control of the Administratum and the Ecclesiarchy, giving him massive powers over the other High Lords of Terra. He essentially controlled 2 of the 12 seats, and through political maneuvering took control of several more. Again, it took several Space Marine chapters in order to bring him back or to attempt to wrest control from him. However, it was the rise of Sebastian Thor and Vandire's own Holy Order of Warrior Nuns that took him out of power. Those warrior nuns, by the way, would later become known as the Sisters of Battle. The Age of Dark Imperium, which was in M41 to M42, saw the opening of the Cicatrix Maledictum and the faltering of the Astronomicon for the first time. Terra itself was assaulted by demons as Khorn launched a massive and brutal assault on the Imperial Palace. During what would become known as the Battle of Lion's Gate, a joint force of Primaris Marines, the Adaptus Custodes, and the Sisters of Silence were able to repel the demonic assault. But the attempt stands as a dire warning of how far the Chaos Gods can reach when the power of the Golden Throne wanes. I need a dun-dun-dun soundboard button.
Yeah.
There's so much in 40K that you read it and then dun-dun-dun.
Pretty much every event.
Yeah, every sentence. But yeah, some crazy shit has happened with Terra. And there's that whole idea that if tinfoil hat territory, if the Emperor dies, there's a button that the Custodes can push that Etch-a-Sketch reset the world.
Really?
Yeah, I can't remember.
The Terminus Decree.
Yes, the Terminus Decree. Thank you.
What do you call it? The Omega 13?
Essentially, it would. Right?
Why
is it still counting down? But the Terminus Decree, it essentially states that if so many things fail, they'll hit a button. The button will shut down the Golden Throne. The Emperor's mortal body will fully die, allowing the Emperor to become the 5th, in air quotes, Chaos God, which will probably be good overall for whatever survives of humanity. However,
anybody around there is going to have a bad day.
However, for the vast majority of people, it will not be good.
Since Terra is on the other side of the galaxy from Cadia, does that mean we're going to get
Cadia's
the butthole of terror?
Cadia is actually not really that far from Terra.
I know. I'm just kind of like how we have the Maw and the Maelstrom.
Right.
We're going to get the Eye of Terror and the butthole of Terra.
The brown eye.
I just think it's really funny that they keep saying that they've separated the worlds and they're not connected, and yet
there's a lot of
every
connections.
Single time they advance the lore, they do so borrowing lore from the other one.
Well, and most of the lore of the old world, as somebody who's relatively familiar specifically with Bronze Age collapse history, is literally Bronze Age collapse history.
I think that's probably what it is they're both parodies of actual history, and they're just the same things are going to get parodied. So
yeah. Inspired by.
Yeah.
They're not making, well, they are making fun of it. They're totally fucking taking the piss out of most of it. What was that, Marky?
I was saying the nipple of terror.
The nipple of terror?
Yeah, that's where all the demonettes come out.
Ow. That makes my nipples hurt. All right, so the geography of Terra, because we always get to the geography and climate of the planet.
My favorite subject.
Terra is now a massive high world, or Enconopolis, the largest on record in the galaxy.
Ecumenopolis?
I think it's Enconopolis. I've heard it pronounced a couple of times. I'd be interested to see. But a world city, essentially. That's what that word is, a special word that means world city. Earth that has been completely stripped of natural resources millennia ago, and its soil has been left utterly barren. Terra's oceans had begun to vanish during the Age of Strife, and what had survived had been boiled away in the years after the Horus Heresy, the immense heat of hundreds of billions of lives being too much for them to survive. The liquid water needed by the population comes from captured outer solar system comets, which are brought into the orbit around the throne world and broken down for consumption. Many of Terra's mountain ranges have been completely leveled, and even traces of them are no longer evident. The Himalayas are the only exception, with the tops of the mountain ranges having been leveled to build the Imperial Palace. The core of the mountains contain, however, the genetic engineering laboratories where the Emperor created the Primarchs and the first Space Marines. The chambers of the Astronomicon can also be found running throughout the entire mountain range. When we say the Himalayas were leveled to make the Imperial Palace, we mean they were leveled, as in somebody made them a level plane to build on. When we say that all of the mountains on Terra were leveled, we mean destroyed and turned into tiny pebbles. Which, it's weird because it's the same word, but English is a fun language where the same word means different things. While almost the entire surface of the planet is encrusted in a single city, with hive spires rising here and there out of the choking pollution, that city is built on the ancient remains of older civilizations. And the vast catacombs of these forgotten layers hold older cultures, radically different from anything that can be found on the surface.
Sounds like a fun place to live.
It sounds like there's a lot of like story kernels. If you wanted to tell some crazy stories about like the shit that happens in the Underhive of Terra,
yeah,
I mean, they pretty much give you carte blanche. They're like, you go down deep enough, nobody fucking knows what's going on down there.
Good luck.
I also found it interesting, and it's kind of weird to sort of wrap my head around, at least, that they turned the Himalayas into a level building field,
like a plateau.
But kept the majority of the mountain core there, so they could use those the biggest mountain range that we know of, tallest mountain range that we know of, in order to like build other things. But like some of the oldest mountain ranges in the world, not oldest, but some of the largest mountain ranges in the world, like the Rockies, which stretches pretty much 2 continents, it's gone. There's nothing left. It's been bombed to oblivion. It's just a crazy idea that like some mountains kind of survived, other mountains are just gone.
Tactically speaking, I can't really see a reason why the Himalayas would deserve a carpet nuking. So
tactically, I can. The Imperial Palace was built there.
Right.
In fact, the Himalayas were tactically carpet nuked.
But before that,
the
reason those mountains would still exist over, say, the Rockies in Murcia. In Murcia.
See, we can still pronounce it like it's Murcia.
Murcia.
Can't stop me, GW.
Yeah, Murcia.
Goddamn Murcia.
Murcia.
But a lot of that damage was actually done during the Horus Heresy. That's the crazy
a lot of it
thing.
Also done before that, too.
Yeah. A square meter of land on Terra costs more than a palace on any other hive world, with most being owned by dynastic family bloodlines. So there's not really a lot of territory on Terra that's for sale, but if you could find it, a meter of it, a square meter of it. So fucking what, 9 feet, 9 square feet, right? No, 3 square feet, 3 square feet.
Yeah.
Would be more expensive than a palace in the spires of any other Hive world. Only the Antarctic pole region is free of the sprawling and creeping city. The headquarters of the Imperial Inquisition lie beneath the remaining ice caps of Antarctica, and this is one of the most secure installations of the entire Imperium. Now, I do have a weird thing here. There's no more water at all because it's too hot for water to survive, but there are still ice caps. And I don't know if that's a it's oversight or if that's a testament to how cold the pole is supposed to be. I'm not sure.
Both.
Okay.
I don't remember where I stumbled across somebody going over this kind of stuff. I think it was a combination of multiple sources, but in sci-fi in general, this concept of single biome planets is overused and blatantly scientifically impossible.
And they always have ice-capped poles, no matter how hot they are, except for Arrakis.
But even Arrakis, it wouldn't necessarily have an ice-capped pole, but it would be freezing cold just because of the way a sphere is shaped and just the sheer distance differences between the pole and the equator. There will be a temperature difference because it's just physically not possible.
Right. And to be fair, Arrakis is a single biome planet and is the cause of the single biome planet trope.
Probably.
But Arrakis is a single biome planet because it has suffered a purposeful terraforming ecological disaster. Arrakis did not start out as a desert planet. Arrakis was made into a desert planet.
Exactly.
And a lot of people who only read Dune don't know that. You have to read more than just the first book. Anyway, sorry.
But then the other part of it that I remember, because I combine a bunch of things into my own head-built Wikipedia for it, is that it's not necessarily that there's no water.
Sci-fi nerds.
It's that there's no usable free water.
Well,
it's all tied in municipal systems. It's in so it's not like there's no ocean, there's no lakes, there's no rivers, but there is water in the sewage treatment plant. There is water, in the cooling systems for the manufactories, and they're
constantly bringing water in. So there is water on Terra. There just isn't oceans on Terra.
Yeah, it's more like a misrepresentation of, it's like they say it never rains on Arrakis, and that makes sense.
It rains in the deep desert.
Yeah?
Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of shit about Dune and the planet of Arrakis that, if you read the first book and you watch the movies, that there's very much what the Fremen want you to think. And then there's the actual planet.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Oh, speaking of, they have a release date for part 2.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Yeah, August.
Oh, nice. At one time, great orbital plates connected to space tethers had dotted Terra's surface. These had largely become unused for their original purpose by the time of the end of the Age of Strife, because the generation of the warp drive anti-grav stuff was introduced. So they were kind of used as people lived in these things. They were not used as space tethers anymore. However, Rogel Dorn, Primarch of the Imperial Fists and the Praetorian of Terra, had dismantled them before the arrival of Horus's forces. 1, because he needed the resources to build defenses, and 2, because he couldn't be sure that the peoples who lived in them were loyal or not. Building in their place countless orbital defense platforms, which still circle the planet. The Throne World is one of the most heavily fortified planets in the Imperium. All right. This is the Animaniacs part where I try to sing all the notable locations quickly. I am kidding. That's not going to happen.
Oh, I was really hoping for it.
Right? Notable locations. These first several notable locations are all going to be within the Imperial Palace or within the Himalayan area. The Imperial Palace itself, more of a sprawling hive city, the Imperium Palace dominates most of the northern hemisphere. This is the heart of the Administratum and the domain of the Adeptus Custodes. It also contains the Great Throne Room of the Emperor, which is the location of the Golden Throne. It is divided into the inner and outer palace. I think by most of the northern hemisphere, they mean most of the northeastern hemisphere, because most of the northern hemisphere would also include like Mercia, which has its own entire, it's covered by a giant manufactorum, essentially.
Say it right, Ryan.
Mercia.
Thank you.
Mercia.
Buongiorno.
Reboderci.
We're nothing if not consistent, guys. The Eternity Gate, the largest entryway into the inner Imperial Palace. This is often the last leg of the Imperium cult's pilgrimage and is one of the most important sites of the journey. There is a mile-long passage leading to the Eternity Gate, which is lined with thousands of banners to the greatest and long dead of Imperial heroes, including those of Lord Solar Commander Macarius himself. Lord Commander Solar Macarius himself. Sorry, I screwed up his title. The Sanctum Imperialis is next. This is the throne room in the heart of the Imperial Palace, a massive chamber that contains the Golden Throne and the Emperor's body. It is guarded by a select 300 custode warriors, the companions of the Emperor, and they are considered the elite of the elite. Also in the Imperial Palace are the central offices of the Departamento Mentorum. This is the Imperial Guard High Command structure. The House of Weapons. This is the armory of the Imperial Palace. The Custodes and the Imperial Fists are known to store their arms and armor here. The Tower of the Hegemon. Within the tower is the Watch Room, which is the nerve center of the Custode. The City of Sight, the headquarters of the Adaptus Astra Telepathica in the Imperial Palace during the Heresy. The Obsidian Keep, the current headquarters of the Adaptus Astris Telepathica. The Badab Bastion, an ancient place of council and refuge for the warlords and tyrants that predate even the Age of Strife. It was absorbed into the growing Imperial Palace and was used as a command and control center by Dorn during the siege. The Tower of Heroes. This houses the Bell of Lost Souls, which is only tolled when the greatest of Imperial heroes is slain. The tolling of the Bell of Lost Souls can be heard by almost everybody in the northeastern hemisphere inside the Imperial Palace when it is rung, and when it is rung, everybody stops and reflects until it is done ringing. The Shrouds. This used to be the headquarters and central meeting place of the Officio Assassinorum. The Column of Glory, a massive crystalline pillar of metals, 1/2 kilometer high. It is housed under a dome so massive that clouds and storm systems form inside of it. The pillar is studded with hundreds of shattered powered armored suits belonging to the Blood Angels, White Scars, and Imperial Fist Space Marines who died defending the Imperial Palace during the Siege of Terra. Column of Glory and the Pillar of Bone are two of the coolest fucking things that are inside the Imperial Palace, like monuments. So the Imperial Bone has a bunch of rumors around it, and I'm not going to get into the rumors because there's a lot. But the truth is that it is the last remnant of the Imperial Fists Fortress Monastery, which was all but destroyed during the last acts of the Horus Heresy. It's like the last pillar of the original monastery. It's the only thing that's left. The Invisitory, a massive open-air amphitheater that once contained the statues of all 20 Primarchs on plinths, arranged in a silent ring. After the heresy, the traitor Primarch statues were removed. I got a thing here. All 20 Primarchs had statues. They only removed the statues of the traitors, which means there are 2 statues in there that
people are
no
like,
one
who
knows
the fuck
anything
are these
about.
Guys?
I wonder if they just don't have faces or something.
Didn't I remember during the heresy?
Am I fucking up? Were there 22 original Primarchs? Did I just fuck that up?
No, there's 20.
Was there 20 and 2 were stricken from record?
Yeah, leaving 18.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But didn't Alpha Legion people sneak in and blow up some of those statues?
Yeah, there's some other randomness that
I just
happened.
couldn't remember if it was they blew up Dorn's statue to make it personal, or if they blew up those ones.
Yeah, a lot of
because
the,
it was convenient or whatever, and that way they didn't have to explain them.
A lot of the like specific shenanigans that a lot of the like legions got up to in the open season of the Black Library, I'm not super in touch with because I haven't read all the books. But I want to say I remember something about that.
I know at one point some Alpha Legion guys is inside the palace, and they're like talking shit to Dorn. Dorn's like, "You're never gonna get in here," and he's like, "Fucking watch me!" Boom! And something fucking.
I think they blew up
Dorn. I was like, was it Dorn or did they just blow up the other one? And it was just the other one.
Yeah. And during the heresy itself, they didn't remove the statues. They covered them in sheets and like big ass like tarps because the Emperor was still essentially like of the mindset that they could be saved. He
didn't know how far they had fallen. Yeah. Because even, I mean, it's implied that even up until the point where...
Oh, he was trying to save Horus, like in the fight.
Yeah.
He was trying to save Horus.
It came to the conclusion that it was untenable and was like, all right.
Yeah.
Game, GG.
And that's one of the reasons that Horus was winning, was that the Emperor was still trying to save him.
Back in a way, yeah.
And Horus was like, there was no Horus left in Horus, so he didn't give a shit anymore. So the Senatorium Imperialis of the High Lords of Terra, a massive building inside the palace that houses the Council of the Senatorium Imperialis of the 12 High Lords of Terra. So it's got their houses and their council chambers. It's like their district, essentially. In this is the Great Chamber of the Senatorium, which is where they hold parliament. The Library Sanctus, an imperial archive which holds the knowledge of some of the oldest and most sinister things in galactic history, such as information on the Men of Iron and the Yamga monolith. The Dark Cells, also known as the Black Cells. These are located deep beneath the Imperial Palace and contain various entities and artifacts which date back to the Age of Strife, each of which could annihilate the Imperium itself if they were ever to break free or be used by those seeking to. It is unknown if these are also the vaults of Raytheon, which were used by the Legio Custodes before the heresy. The Dark Cells are patrolled at all times by 100 Shadow Keepers, a shield host of the Custode. It is said that the atmosphere of these cells can put even them on edge.
I just think it's kind of funny that you say it's like the vaults of Raytheon. Like, yes, good old Raytheon, still building weapons in the 41st millennium.
Nice. I didn't even think of that. It may be Raytheon, and my brain did Raytheon because
it's because of that reason. But
exactly,
even so, it's a clever writing thing that they did, probably on purpose.
Probably. The Dark Cells are where Keener is kept before the Sigillite frees her to start the Imperial cult. Like when she's captured, when she's still a remembrancer before the Divinica, Letitia Divinicus is like out, she is kept in the Dark Cells because they realize she's too dangerous. Like, she could start a religion. And even though it's a religion of the Emperor, she can start a religion which will destroy the Imperium. And it's not until Malkador is like, we need the religion or the Imperium is going to fall, that they free her and let her out of the Dark Cells. Just an interesting, like, little thing. All right. So outside of the Imperial Palace is the many buildings of the Adaptus Terra. These buildings and complexes are spread across the surface of the throne world and make up the government that keeps it all running. There are also the many buildings of the Administratum. This is the primary administrative arm of the Adaptus Terra. And again, they have facilities essentially everywhere. So listing them all off is not a thing. They're just everywhere. The Forbidden Fortress. This is a vast complex that extends under and throughout most of Himalaya. A single peak is carved to be the chamber of the Astronomicon, where 10,000 psychers continuously power the beacon itself. Access to the Forbidden Fortress is by invitation only, and this rule even extends to members of the Inquisition. The Navigator's Quarter. Headquarters and palaces of the families of the Navinus Nobilitae, or Navigator households. It's said that this is on a secluded island on itself, which again, it's one of those things like, but you said there were no oceans, so how's there an island? But it probably means an island as in a plateau and what used to be an ocean. That's also a distinction. A lot of the city, even though we talk about the city encrusting the entire world, it's not quite like Coruscant. It's more like several hundred miles extending into what was the oceans. The canyons left by the absence of oceans are deep enough that the city doesn't necessarily completely encrust what was the ocean floor.
Yeah, they're like metaphorical oceans at that point.
Good, yeah, metaphor. I like that. Metaphorically.
Formerly literally, currently metaphorically.
The Hall of Judgment. This is the headquarters of the Adeptus Arbites. The Officio Assassinorum and Assassinorum Temple. This location is a heavily guarded secret. It operates as the headquarters and main school of the Assassinorum, with the temple serving as the Grand Master of the Assassin's personal headquarters. The Ecclesiarchal Palace. This palace sprawls almost all of the entirety of what was once known as Australia and serves as the headquarters of the ecclesiarchy. It is also home to 2 covenant priories of the Adepta Sororitas. It also contains the Cathedral of the Emperor Defied. This is the massive cathedral of the Imperial cult, and the Cathedral of the Savior Emperor, which is the largest of the Imperial cult's cathedrals on Terra and in the known galaxy. This is also the most popular place for pilgrims to visit. It is said to hold many Imperial relics, including fragments of the Emperor's armor and the ashes of Reboot Gilliman's cloak. There is the Kangaba Maru, also known as the Vault, the large underground Imperial prison complex of Terra, which holds the worst criminals of the Imperium of Man. It is located in the Himalaya Mountains under the peak of Rakapashi and dates back to at least 1,000 years before the Great Crusade, and no one knows who built it or why it was built. The name of it, the location of it, and all of that totally makes me think of the prison that Bane was thrown into in the Dark Knight trilogy. That like deep ass hole that they just kick him into. Or no, that they kick Batman into. Yeah. I was born.
By the time you discovered the darkness, I was already a man.
I like that. I don't know if you've ever seen the ones where like, I was born to the internet, molded by it. You merely came upon it as a man. Like they twist like the internet logic and all that shit.
By the time you discovered YouTube, I was already a man.
Right. It totally wouldn't be the Bane voice. It would be some creepy ass voice.
I just love how they got to the Bane voice.
Oh yeah, no, I just watched a thing on that. It was pretty awesome.
It's so that it was like just a joke.
Yeah, and then he was like, "No, run with that."
He did it, and they were like, "No, we're doing it."
It's sold, brother.
It's like when I did the Yarick as a Southern general,
and now it's just canon.
And now it's our canon.
Next up is the Eternal City. This is a massive urban area adjacent to the Imperial Palace itself. It is said to be a true reflection of all Hive cities across the entire galaxy. It's very, very beautiful and resplendent, and incredibly dingy and dirty. Then there are the catacombs, vast underground passages which run beneath all of Terra, so large that they require oversight by a designated Imperial official known as the Mistress Plenary, who is a lesser member of the Centaurum Imperialis, serving at the pleasure of the High Lords. Hive Keralia, the ruins of an ancient hive bombarded during the siege that once contained vast libraries of Dark Age knowledge. Hive Tashkent, a hive city on the continent of Asia. The Himalaic Shelf. Deep beneath this geological construction live the deadly denizens of various rune-locked vaults. The warriors of the Adeptus Custodes often fight in skirmishes intent on preventing them from escaping. I love how there's just this like, yeah, there's some creepy shit down there. Custodes got to go take care of it. We're not going to tell you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Manufactorum Mercium. This is a manufactorum complex. I am assuming it is somewhere, if not all over, North America. Because there's not much more other than it's a massive manufactorum and a couple of battles happened there. And I did not want to get into a bunch of battles that we're going to talk about potentially in a couple of episodes. The Walking City, a massive, densely populated mobile techno-nomad platform that slowly walks a looping route towards the equator and back on 20 massive legs. This was the site of a demonic incursion by the Lord of Flies during the siege, in which the mobile city was only saved by Nathaniel Garrow and the Knights Errant. The White Mountain, an ancient subterranean fortress built under one of Terra's massive remaining mountains. It had remained highly irradiated and uninhabitable since at least the Age of Strife, but had been reclaimed by the Imperium to serve as a prison for psychers. And a bunch of battles happened here, Sisters of Battle and some other demons. And we will probably get into a couple of these locations when we cover the Unification Wars, and then we will probably touch on a couple more of them when we do our brief coverage of the Heresy and the Siege of Terra. And that's it for episode 70, Planet Spotlight, Holy Terra. There's obviously a lot more of this. There's stuff that's being done now, and there's probably something that we left out for timing reasons or because we're going to jump into it with our Unification War and early 30K miniseries. That is coming up, so if this is the type of stuff you guys are super interested in, you want to know all of the ancient history that essentially set up the Imperium, we are in it. We are in it, boys. It's going to be a ride. Are we excited? I know we're excited for Thunder Warriors. Are we excited for everything else?
As excited as I can be.
Marky's quivering in his boots. If you want to get in contact with us about the show or share your own short stories, lore, or spooky stories, you can reach us by email at underthehiveofmadness@gmail.com or jimdarkgaming@gmail.com.
You can also reach us through our community on Discord. There we chat about 40K lore, the hobby, tactics, plus maybe a little bit Age of Sigmar, Warhammer Fantasy Battle, creative writing, video games, role-playing, and so much more. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, the TikToks, or email us at www.underthehiveofmadness.com.
You mean our website, underthehiveofmadness.com.
Or visit us.
Yeah, email our website. It's cool.
It's late. I'm tired.
Technology
email
does what? Like and review us wherever you get your podcast. Our home is Spotify, but we are on Apple, Google, Audible, Stitcher, and a bunch of other places. If there's a place that you listen to podcasts and we don't happen to be there yet, you can always reach out to us with one of those emails provided, and we'll get back to you. By the way, the spellings for everything and links to most stuff is down in the show notes for the episode, or is in the show notes for the episode. There is no down, but it's in the show notes for the episode. You can also support us through Patreon at www.patreon.com/underthehiveofmadness. Patreon members get access to a video podcast with minimal editing, so you can see our beautiful faces, follow along with what we're looking at on screen, and hear all of our amazing and Oscar-worthy bloopers and blunders. All Patreon levels also get access to our quarterly painting contest, plus we have perks at higher levels, so go on over and check all of that stuff out. Joe's Sump Shack, home of the all-you-can-eat sump crustacean and fungi cheddar jalapeno biscuit platter. Just 3 creds after 4th shift. Don't forget to wash it down with a bucket of Snotgrot Arrogant Ale pints on special all week. We are the dysfunctional miscreants of the Underhive, the only true children of rampant rebellion. 665.66 UHMR Chemrat Radio, reminding all of you Chemrats, Hive Mice, and Sump Ghoulies to keep those dials fixed right here. Same ratty frequency for a dose of the same ratty-ass attitude. Ratty in the sump. Dad catches it with a pump. Mommy fries him in a pan, and baby eats him like a man. 4 days forward, entire family cornered. Baby no more, for the 4-armed emperor is restored.
Motherfucker.